Good day, everybody, and what's up? Welcome to the podcast for Selfless Sex and She Comes First. I'm Dr. Nick. Today is October the 18th, 2022, and I hope you all are having a really good day out there. So yes, my voice finally came back, so I can actually do a podcast, so I'm really happy about that. And this is my favorite time of year. It's the spooky season, it's Halloween time, and as many of you may know, I do really enjoy a good scary movie. So, in this podcast, I want to give you the top 10 scary movies that have a strong sexual theme running throughout. And what you may know, many of these can be considered thrillers as well, but still there is some type of horror or blood or a splatter or whatever you want to call it in the movie. And sometimes it's just plain old spooky. According to ScreenRant.com, these are the top 10 scary movies with a strong sexual theme running throughout them. Let's get started. Coming in at number 10, we have Eyes Wide Shut. And right off the bat, no, this is not a scary movie whatsoever. Thriller, maybe. Suspenseful, okay, a little bit. But horror or gory or anything like that, no. But about 2/3 of the way through the movie, when he goes upstairs in that big ass mansion and goes in that room and sees what's going on, strong sexual theme is an understatement. But it's still a good movie. And also, side note, this happens to be Stanley Kubrick's last movie before he died. And I do believe he actually died during the production, so Tom Cruise had to take over. But still, it's not a bad movie. At number 9, we have Videodrome, which came out way back in 1983, starring James Woods. And if you did not know, this is a film by David Cronenberg. He also did The Fly. So yeah, you know what you're in for when watching this film. But basically, it's an early concept of virtual pornography, all based on a videotape. So with that said, get ready for it. It's very intense. It's over the top. My God. But there are strong sexual themes running throughout. At number 8, we have The Hunger, which also came out way back in 1983. And basically, it's a story about vampires. And anything involving vampires during that time period, there was a strong sexual theme running throughout the movie. And in this movie, there is a love triangle involving vampires. So you already know it's going to get pretty hot and steamy. So in my opinion, The Hunger is definitely worth a quick watch. Coming in at number 7, we have Jennifer's Body, starring Megan Fox. And this film appeared way back in 2009. Doesn't seem that long ago, does it? But of course, it seems kind of campy until she is actually taken over by a succubus. And therefore, men become her sexual playthings in the most painful ways possible. So on that note, if you have a nice boring Sunday and you really aren't doing anything, check out Jennifer's Body. And rounding out the top half of this list, we have Bram Stoker's Dracula, starring Gary Oldman from 1992. And yes, once again, we are talking about vampires here. These are not the animalistic creatures from something really nice like 30 Days of Night. These are the leather and lace wearing vampires, which kind of hints at a very light S&M theme, but it's okay though. But still, there are strong sexual themes running throughout, especially from Dracula's brides. At number 5, we have a film called The Love Witch, which came out in 2016. To be honest, I never saw this film, but from what I can understand, this film centers around a woman who uses witchcraft to get men to fall madly in love with them, and then the sexiness and the sexual activities occur on cue. But according to Screen Rant, it's in their top 5, so maybe you want to check it out. One of my favorite movies of the past 20 years happens to be Black Swan, which came out back in 2010. And you want to talk about some sort of like psychological horror, this is the movie for you. And there is a strong sexual theme running between the ballet dancers in this film. And to add to that, there is a very hot sex scene between some of the ballet dancers. But yes, this is a psychological horror movie, not really bloody and gory at all. There was one scene I can think back to involving a toenail, which is really gross, but that's pretty much it. But as for psychological horror or thriller, this is the movie for you. At number 3, we have American Psycho, starring Christian Bale. And yes, this is a damn good film. It is over the top. Christian Bale's performance is amazing. There is sex throughout, there is gore throughout, there is blood throughout, there is even bloody sex throughout. Near the end, when things just go completely sideways, it's off the chain. But I do highly recommend this movie. If you like psychological horror mixed in with some gore and some sex, American Psycho is definitely for you. Coming in at number 2, we have The Enemy, which appeared back in 2013, starring Jake Gyllenhaal. And to be honest, I have not seen this movie, but for what I've read, it starts out in a sex club, there are twins involved, things go completely asswiped sideways, and then it ends once again in a sex club. So, I will have to check this movie out, and maybe I will come back to you next Halloween and tell you all about it. But Screen Rant says it's number 2. But before we get to number 1, these are my 3 picks that deserve an honorable mention that did not make this list. So here we go. Contracted, which came out in 2013. And the basic premise is this. The zombie virus is sexually transmitted. And we watch one woman struggle as her body starts to fall apart. And things get really gross when one of her boyfriends attempts to have sex with her, even though there are maggots and body goo and blood and pus oozing out of her vagina, he still has sex with her. It's really gross, a really good story, but it's not for the faint of heart though. My next sexy, spooky movie that did not make their list is It Follows. And the basic premise behind this story is this. There is a spooky curse that follows you around, and the only way for you to get rid of it is to pass it sexually onto someone else. So for example, let's say I have the curse, and there's a girl I really don't like, so I seduce her, I pass the curse onto her, and now this evil spirit is following her around. So in my opinion, it's a really good story, really pretty spooky too, and the ending has a nice twist to it. And my third sexy spooky movie that did not make the list is a movie called Teeth, which came out in 2007. And the basic story behind this movie is this. Vagina denta. A young lady has a vagina that has teeth in it. And she has the ability to contract them and actually cut off people's penises. And she actually cuts off people's fingers as well. So when she gets angry, the teeth come out. But when she's happy and everything's good, she has really nice sex. But the last half of the movie, she seems to be really angry with a lot of men. Just think about that. So yes, this movie is called Teeth, and it came out in 2007. Check it out. It's not for the squeamish though. And fellas, you may not like it at all, but still, it's a damn good movie. So coming in at number 1, we have Cat People. And I recommend the remake from 1982. Even though it may look dated and all that, the sexual tension is still there. Damn right brutal, people get torn apart. There is actually a quote-unquote mating scene going on near the end of the movie. Needless to say, there is sexuality running throughout this movie, and it's not for the faint of heart either. But if you can make it through, it's still a really good film. So to close out this podcast, just let me say this really quickly. There are some really good, terrifyingly sexy movies out there. And there are some really good thrillers as well. For instance, like Dangerous Liaisons. And then on the flip side of that, we have movies like Species, which involve mating and trying to take over a planet. And it's not that movie is not really gory, but the whole idea of just mating and breeding and trying to take over a planet, that theme runs throughout. And the main character happens to be a supermodel or a former supermodel. So, what movies are really sexy but also really terrifying and or gory for you? So please feel free to leave a comment down below. So, on that note, I'm out. You guys have a great day. Stay tuned, and I'll talk to you soon.